Good day, welcome to Music Motors, welcome to the 2020 Honda Civic. This is a EX Sportline, so it is the tippy top of the top when it comes to specifications. Now, the EX Sportline Civic is available in one engine only, 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol, but it is available in 2 gearboxes, a 6-speed manual or a CVT. Now, this CVT is 126 PS, 200 newton meters of torque. It's got a top speed of 125 miles an hour. It will get to 62 miles per hour in about 11 seconds. And on paper can turn around anywhere between 40 and 52 miles to the gallon. So relatively decent. This is kind of sold as a city car that can do everything because it's got so much technology. It's not just suited to the city. It's a go-everywhere car which is as competent in the city as it is the motorway. So in this episode of Music Motors, I talk about the all-new 2020 Honda Civic. The recent generation of Civic's been a bit of a controversial point. It's gone away from that kind of rounded design which we've known with the Civic for many, many years. It's become a bit more flat-nosed, flat-faced, but more sporty. Now, this being an EX Sportline, it definitely has sport more than ever. That front end is very defined, very sporty, lots of nice edges, lots of design to kind of show you that Honda are trying to keep up with the times, and they're doing very, very, very well. Front end is lovely. Now, this being an EX Sportline, it does have lots of extra gloss black bits here and there, and that makes this exterior design with this pearlescent white paint even more eye-catching. I'll add that pearlescent white paint is a £500 option, but looks amazing, kind of worth every penny. Side profile, and that's where everything changes. This is a hatch without being a hatch. It's got more of a saloon-esque kind of look, as we've known for the past 2 generations of Civic. That's kind of where they've been going. But this one with 17-inch non-diamond cut, so piano black finish gloss alloys, really lovely design, very sporty whilst actually still giving you a fair bit of rubber so you don't clang them against curbs and potholes. That side profile is then kind of boosted up as you get towards the back end with a spoiler to say, yeah, this is a Sportline and it is a bit sporty. And down at the bottom there is kind of a running board to show you, well, this is gloss black, look at all the black styling pack we've put on this Sport. Back end, and it is a very handsome back end. It's a great look, lovely light cluster design, nice rear sort of aero going on with that spoiler that I just mentioned. It is generally quite a nice design. The outside does look nice. It looks not beautiful, but very refined, very well designed, very well put together. The lines flow very nicely, and when it comes to the quality of the build, panel gaps aren't really to be seen. The build quality is quite substantial throughout the whole exterior of the car. And if you go for an EX Sportline front end, you've got these hugely bright, sort of adaptive LED headlights. Rear light cluster looks really, really cool. And from a design aesthetic, it marks pretty highly. Town test time. The idea of this test is quite literally to see how this does around town, how it does with turning circle and comfort and economy. So let's go and find out how it did on the other side of this quickly sped up clip. As if by magic, I've arrived and achieved 47.8 miles a gallon. And whilst I know there wasn't a lot of start-stop traffic, there were a lot of hills, there were a lot of changes in speed limits and different driving scenarios. Try to pack it all in. The biggest thing is that this feels really comfortable at home on whatever type of road you get. In 20 sections where there are loads of speed bumps, it's nice and spongy to absorb it, but if you want to have a bit more fun when you get up to higher speed limits, adaptive suspension means that you've got that really nice driving feel. Visibility is very good, seats are very comfortable and heated. You couldn't really ask for more, but one thing I would say is that maybe actually we could ask for a little bit more fuel economy, because this is meant for around town. A 1 litre petrol is meant for around town. So maybe a little bit more, maybe a smidge more. But then again, then the economy on the motorway would have to be better. But for what it is, pretty good job. Inside is equally well put together and designed. It's a nice design which, as we see newer generations coming through, will get nice new bits like an updated infotainment. And this is where I'm going to start, because this is my bugbear with Honda. They've been behind the times for ages, but actually in their newer models, the new infotainment that's coming through is quite good. That said, this is the last generation of the backwards, as I used to call it, infotainment, and it's still got Apple CarPlay, it's still got wireless charging, it's got Garmin Naps, it's got Garmin apps even, and it's got Bluetooth connectivity. It's got everything realistically that you could ask from an infotainment point of view, and the sound system's pretty decent as well. From the driver's point of view, everything's quite good. Visibility is very good. Everything's at your fingertips, including this adaptive and sort of semi-autonomous driving that it can do as well. That's all at your fingertips at the same point. The instrument cluster in front of you is very informative. Everything's there. Nice use of actual dials. They haven't gone too digital, whilst there is a lot of digital, and the dials themselves do contain some lights to imply where the fuel and the engine heat is. It's still got this physical, mechanical feel about it, which is quite nice. The steering wheel itself finished nicely, good size, lovely touch feel. The driver's seat, very comfortable indeed, and heated. Now, whilst it doesn't have huge amounts of bolster protection, as I used to call it, to stop my fat ass falling out of the seat, it is very comfortable and relatively holding. Yeah, it's not going to hold you like a Type R, but as road cars go, it's pretty good at keeping you in the corners when you decide to give it some beans through a corner. Your passengers have an ample amount of space, especially in the back. Your rear passengers honestly do have a good amount of headroom, a good amount of leg space, and USB plug points. There's ISOFIX in the back. It is a useful, capable family car. When you get to the back end, the boot, it's where this just walks all over the competition. Yeah, the Golf's got a good sized boot, but the Civic's boot is just all encumbering and absolutely eats up anything and everything you can put inside it. It's quite alarming how much you can fit in there, and by how versatile this car can be. You put the back seats down and this basically turns into a van. So it's a very useful, very capable, well-designed interior. The quality of the interior does feel pretty substantial. You get in this EX Sportline anyway, and you have a waft of good quality leather. The seats feel well built. This has got, I think, like 8,000-9,000 miles on it as a press car goes, and the bolsters don't have wear on them. And I'm not being funny, as journalists, it's our job to be rough with cars to see how they deal with rough use. And this is done exceptionally well at not showing signs of abuse. This looks as brand new as you would expect a brand new car to look on the inside. And as an option, if you want to have a bit more fun on the back roads, which are going further, and it's not really an option to put on, it's on an EX Sportline, but it's an option for you to turn on and off, is the adaptive dampening, which means that on back roads that are a bit bumpy, you can make the interior quality 10 times better by having less rigid suspension. But when you want a more engaging driving experience, you pop it on and it's right there for you. Front and rear parking sensors, rear camera is there. Isn't the best quality, but gives you all the information you could want. Nice size sunroof. Doesn't open as far as perhaps I would like it to, but by the same point, it is a sunroof. Motorway economy, relatively important, because a car like this is going to be sold to be dealing with all sorts of different driving scenarios and situations. So as a result, motorway test. What this test is economy, comfort, how it deals with driving at 60, 70 miles an hour, and the results are at the other end. On paper, this should only return 53.3 at the absolute best, with ideal circumstances. And I just returned 53 miles to the gallon whilst just driving at 67 miles an hour with a heated seat on and radio 1 turned up, other radio channels are available. And it just achieved it, which for a 3-cylinder is just mind-bending. It doesn't feel like it's underpowered on the motorway. Even getting up to motorway speeds, speeding up the slip road doesn't feel underpowered. The drive is remarkably nicely weighted when you're sat at 70 miles an hour. It's quite quiet. It does feel really well built and really well suited to motorway driving. And it just doesn't feel like a 3-cylinder at all. It just does such a substantially better job than you would think it would be able to do. Visibility's good, seats are very comfortable, audio system's good, economy is pretty incredible for the type of engine it is. Could you ask for more? Now performance, as I said, this is a 1 litre 3-cylinder, so you don't tend to put the two hand in hand, and especially not when it's a CVT. But 126 PS, 200 newton meters of torque, 11-ish seconds to 62. It's realistically 10.8 or 11.2, depending if you go for a manual or a CVT. But I've just put it in the middle, and the same with the top speed. You could go up to 125 mile an hour. Now all of this sounds a little bit like, it sounds like a rubbish city car. But actually once you get going, yeah, the initial nip isn't quite there in a CVT. But when you get going, the power's actually pretty decent, more than reasonable on the motorway, and you do have enough nip to get out at junctions when you need to go. You just need to boot it a little bit more, put it into a sports gearbox mode and let the engine spool up, as it were. You'll then find when you're around town, it has a very small lock that actually gives you quite a decent turning radius. The visibility's really good for that town driving, and the economy means you're going to really never see any less than about 35 to 37 unless you've got a very heavy right foot like me. I can get this sub 30s, but you really have to have a heavy foot, and that's only on one journey. By the time you've driven it a little bit somewhere else, that average has gone back up to about mid 30s anyway. On back roads, this car feels very composed. It does give you a very good driving feel. The steering's a lovely weight. The adaptive suspension means that you really do feel engaged with this car, and I just don't expect to say it because this is just a normal car, but yet it gives such an incredible driving experience. Different to any of the competition, but great if you want something that's quite engaging. You actually get some feedback from the car, and on back roads, yes, you'll have to rev the literal testicles out of the engine at points to really keep your speed up. And I mean, if you're trying to keep 60 through corners where they advise you do 50, those tighter corners, yes, you have your foot down because this engine does at times feel a little underpowered when you're going up a bigger hill. But by all means, it makes a cool sound. The driving feel is really impressive, and I like it. I really like it. On the motorway, this is very smooth. Doesn't have a lot of road ingress. The sound system's pretty good. The adaptive drive controls mean that, well, however you're driving, wherever you're driving, even if you're getting tired, the car's keeping an eye on everything, even if you're not managing to. It is very impressive. Outside, I really like and appreciate the design of this car. It's a model update when they went from that kind of rounder shape to this quite snout-nosed shape that I wasn't sure if I was going to like. And I guess in UK terms we call it Marmite. Some people love it, some people hate it, but as I've seen it more, I've liked it more and more. And especially as an EX Sportline, this just looks incredible. And I really do mean this looks absolutely incredible. I really like how it looks in that it's sporty but yet subdued. And this bright white paint, pearlescent paint, or metallic pearlescent paint, however you want to call it, is it's stunning in the sunlight. And it actually doesn't show dirt too badly. When you get inside, the quality is phenomenal, normal Honda build quality. Good quality, everything put together with a great design. The technology is becoming better and better in every generation of car they release, and really the only bugbear for me in this specific one is the infotainment still feels a little out of date. Doesn't mean it's bad, because it still has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, everything you can need, but just feels, in comparison to the Honda E and Honda Jazz, slightly behind the times. But as I say, still not a bad thing. And that drive, engaging, wonderful on back roads, the economy is reasonable, and it's comfortable. Honda have really excelled in making this a very competent, capable car.